Hi, this is Miss Diorama. Welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'll show you how I created this shadow box. For this project, I found inspiration from old-style French architecture. I did my best to include all of these features into a design. And here is the resulting building template. For this project, I'm using 3mm matboard and MDF, 1.5mm matboard, plus some cardstock, glue, paint and some old twigs I found, as well as a few other things including egg carton. I will be sure to leave a materials list in the video description. If you want to know where you can buy the matboard I'm using, I have provided a link in the description for that as well. Let's get started. I began with a stencil that looks like cracked and crumbling stucco. To make the stucco, I combined sand, plaster and PVA glue in a bowl and mixed it until smooth. I used a paintbrush to apply the mixture, slowly adding layers once the previous layer had dried. This took a lot of time, but I think the result was worth it. When dry, it feels sort of like a sheet of sandpaper. I set the stucco aside for later. Now onto the building front. I applied some raw umber acrylic paint to the areas that were engraved with bricks. Once that was dry, I dry brushed with burnt umber. Once that was dry, I applied some of the plaster mix I had made earlier to look like mortar between the bricks, wiping off the excess with a damp cloth. When that was done, it was time to make the doors. These cardstock pieces will act as hinges. The reason for the 4 doors is because these doors will be double-sided. I will glue them together a little later. First, I add 3D details to the front of the doors. While the glue on the doors was drying, I made the windows and shutters. I started with the shutters. I designed these shutters so the blades can be angled to look like they're open. Although I broke a blade while doing this, it didn't matter too much because I was able to secure it with glue. I repeated the same process for both shutters. To complete the shutters, I glue a second frame to the other side of each one. That completed the shutters. Now back to the windows. To make the windows, I followed the same procedure as with the doors. I glued the cardstock hinges to one side. Then some 3D details also. Once the glue was dry, it was time to paint all of these pieces. I first applied raw umber to all of the pieces, back and front. I follow this with burnt umber. Then the roof beams also got a coat of both colours. This is the floor piece. Note the engraved wood grain. This needed to be painted to look like wood. I I usually paint pieces prior to assembly because it makes it easier than if I was to wait until everything was assembled before painting. This floor piece will be enclosed inside the building and therefore almost impossible to paint once the building is assembled. These parts you can see here are the rear and side walls and the planter box parts. They all get a coat of sand-coloured acrylic paint before assembly. These parts for the battery housing also got a coat of paint. The roof beams just needed some yellow and some sand dry brushed on to give them that aged wood look. I also gave the window shutters the same treatment. Now to revisit the doors. Using a clear binder cover, I trimmed to size a piece that will fit over the windows. Before anything else, I decided to assemble the main entrance. To do this, I proceeded to glue all the pieces together. Just a quick word of warning, if you want to attempt this project, you'll need a laser cutter. The template files are available in my shop. I'll be sure to leave a link to that in the description. By the way, if you notice the marks on my fingers, it's not dirt. When using a laser to cut materials, you end up with a build-up of soot from the cutting process on all the edges of your pieces, which is unfortunately unavoidable and one of the few negatives of laser cutting. Once the main entrance was completed, I went back to finish the doors. I started by gluing the window glass in place on one of the door panels. The other door panel is glued to the other side of this, which results in the glass being sandwiched between the two door panels. Then it was time to attach the door stops to the doors. Once I had finished assembling the doors, it was time to also finish putting together the main entrance. Firstly, the entry roof was glued on. Then I assembled the parts that I'll need to make the columns that will go either side of the main entrance. Now I'm going to take a second to show you some micro tools that the amazing people from Proxxon have supplied for me to demonstrate. The first one is a pen sander. I'm going to use this pen sander from Proxxon to round off some corners. The pen sander from Proxxon comes with interchangeable sanding arbors with triangle, oval, circular or square sanding heads. It also comes with interchangeable 180, 240 and 400 grit sanding pads to suit the different sanding heads. I am using the triangular shaped sanding head for this task. This pen sander has to be one of my favourite tools for precision work, especially on the miniatures that I make. You can easily adjust the power output with the dial on the mains adapter. This pen sander is 12 volt and is used in conjunction with the Proxxon NG2E mains adapter or the 5E mains adapter, which I have here. One advantage of this Pensander is that it is corded, and therefore there are no batteries to change. It has a linear rather than a rotating stroke. The user can supply rotation if and when necessary. If you make miniatures or have a hobby that requires detailed finishing, I definitely recommend this little tool. Another great tool from Proxxon is this Micromot 60E combination drill grinder. It has an infinitely variable electronic speed control. It also has high engine power even at lower speeds. It has 6 Micromot steel collets, allowing for a variety of bits to be used in conjunction with it. I'm using it with a sanding cap for those harder to reach areas. This micro tool is very effective for tiny jobs like this. Once the sanding was complete, I added the columns either side of the main entrance. Now back to the windows again. It was time to install glass into the windows. Using a clear binder cover, I trimmed to size a piece that will fit over the windows. Then I glue these in place. The other half of the window frame is glued to the other side of the window, which results in the glass being sandwiched between the two panels. That completed the doors and windows. Then it was time to make the awning for the window. By gluing these pieces together, largest to smallest, it creates a 3D effect as if the awning was carved from stone. I hope to achieve the same effect with the front entrance piece I created earlier. I also glued these pieces together to form the balconette. These balconette pieces will be glued together later during installation. Now that most of the building parts were ready, it was time to glue the stucco panel that was made earlier onto the front of the building. For this, I used PVA wood glue because I wanted a stronger bond than what craft glue will provide. Then I glued on these pieces to build out the window and door frame even with a stucco layer. On the back of the building front, I glued on more pieces to build deeper window and door frames. Now with the stucco attached, I could install the parts that were made earlier. I did this by gluing them on with craft glue. Once the glue was dry, I did some more sanding to smooth off as many imperfections as possible. Once the sanding was complete, I added Stucco Finish to these new features. Once the stucco was dry, it could be painted. These parts will make up the battery pack housing for the lights. I assemble them using craft glue. Along with the newly assembled battery pack, there were some frames and railings to paint. I made some uprights for the balconette railings by gluing together 4 of these rail posts. Then I glued these to the balconette. Where they were coated with the stucco mix. While that was allowed to dry, I attached the doors and windows. Then it was time to attach the shutters. Once that was done, the balconette uprights needed a coat of paint. Then it was time to assemble the building. To achieve this, I applied PVA glue to the notches along the edges of each piece, then glued the pieces together one at a time. I used clamps to keep the pieces together while the glue dried. This is where the battery box will be located. Now I can attach the planter boxes to the front of the building. was time to install a string of LED lights. I did this by using hot glue to hold the light string in place. With the lights now installed, I assembled and installed the front stairs. With the stairs complete, I glued the building front in place. I used clamps to keep it in place while the glue dried. For the roof, I painted this piece of cardstock with a colour called burnt sienna. It vaguely resembles terracotta. While that dried, I installed the roof beams, gluing them in place with craft glue. Then I attached the piece of cardstock with the painted side down. Then I cut some roof tiles out of egg carton. I glued these in place on the roof in an overlapping pattern. I cut the parts for the shadow box out of 3mm thick MDF using my laser cutter. I painted the roof tiles using burnt sienna coloured acrylic paint. The stairs and planter boxes needed to have the stucco finish applied. While that was drying, I installed the Balconette railing. With the railing now installed, it was time to add the ivy vines that I'd planned. I found the perfect twig to use for the ivy vine, but it needed to be trimmed. This is the Proxxon Micromot SDS 12E Jigsaw that Proxxon sent me. I'm about to use it in conjunction with the Proxxon Precision Vise FMZ with integrated clasp. It features this ball and socket that rotates in all directions. It clamps to workbenches and tables up to 60mm in thickness. This precision vise from Proxxon has a maximum clamping width of 70mm and holds up to 1.6 kilograms in weight. I'm running this 12E jigsaw with the Micromot mains adapter NG5E. This little jigsaw is able to saw wood up to 10mm thick and metal up to 2.5mm thick. It comes with 2 saw blades, one coarse and one fine. It runs off direct voltage, so no batteries. It also has a 6mm stroke with adjustable speed between 2000 and 5000 RPM. The length of this little jigsaw is 180mm and it weighs a tiny 480 grams. This jigsaw has many varied uses for hobbyists who need to cut wood or metal often. Before I could attach the vines, I felt that the building needed to be aged, and I did that by adding a dark wash all over it. Now it was time to assemble the shadow box, but first I wanted to give the parts a stained finish. This is Feast & Watson traditional spirit-based stain in the colour oak that I'm using to stain the parts. To assemble these pieces, I first applied PVA wood glue to the notches along the edges. The notches on one piece slot into the corresponding notches on the other piece by design. Before putting the shadow box completely together, the building was glued snugly into the space that was made for it. Once the glue on the shadow box was dry, I proceeded to add the ivy vines onto the front of the building. I don't show it here, but I used hot glue for this. I made these leaves by cutting them out of cardstock using my laser, and then coloured them by immersing them into watered down green paint. Then after that I spread them out onto wax paper to allow them to dry. I used some tile grout as the soil in the planter boxes. To this I added water, which would eventually make the tile grout set firmly in place. Then it was time to add the leaves to the vines, which I did by gluing on one at a time. You may be able to imagine how long this took me. Then I finally decided I'd had enough of gluing on leaves one by one, and that completed this project. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. And a big thanks to all of my subscribers. I really appreciate your support. If you haven't already subscribed, then please consider supporting me by subscribing, and make sure you hit the like button and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. I hope to see you next time. In the meantime, stick around for a little bit longer and enjoy this little montage that I put together.